A sealed letter. An empire without an heir. And to men who decided, in the span of one night, to rewrite history. In the summer of 10 BC, the most powerful man in the world died in the back of a carriage, in the middle of nowhere, and nobody was allowed to know about it for months. His death was covered up. His final letter was intercepted. His chosen heir was tricked into suicide, and a completely different son was installed on the throne. All of it orchestrated by two men, the chancellor of the empire, and a palace official who held the emperor's seal. The strangest part, we know exactly what they said to each other. We know the route they took home. We even know the smell, the rotting fish they used to mask the emperor's decomposing body. How do we know any of this? That question alone should keep you watching. It's 10 BC. Qin Shi Huang is 49 years old, on his 6th tour of the empire, slowly being poisoned by mercury elixirs his alchemists promised would make him immortal. He knows he is dying, so he writes a letter. He addresses it to his eldest son, Fu Su, commanding the Northern Army at the Great Wall. The message: hand over your troops. Return to the capital. In ancient Chinese court language, that phrase, return to the capital for the funeral rites, meant one thing: you are the next emperor. He hands the letter to Zhao Gao, the official responsible for the imperial seal. The letter was never sent. Somewhere in modern Hebei province, at a place called Shaqiu Sand Mound, the emperor died. Zhao Gao had everything: the unsent letter, the imperial seal, the military tallies that authorized command over armies, and the emperor's youngest son, Hu Hai, traveling in the same convoy. He went to Hu Hai first. Then he went to Lisa, chancellor of the entire empire. What Zhao Gao proposed was simple and completely insane. Destroy the emperor's final instruction. Forge a replacement. Install a different emperor. Lisa refused at first. Then Zhao Gao said, "You and Fu Su don't get along. You know that. Once he's emperor, you're finished. Think about it." Lisa thought about it. They agreed. And so, 4 weeks of summer travel back to the capital. The emperor's body stayed in his carriage. To mask the smell, they loaded extra carts with salted fish to travel alongside. Officials brought daily reports to the carriage window. Meals were delivered and taken away. And from inside, occasionally, a single word of response. The empire held its breath, not knowing it already had no emperor. A forged document was prepared. Fu Su, the intended heir, was at the northern frontier, with the General Meng Tian and hundreds of thousands of troops. He received a letter bearing his father's seal. The message: you have failed in your duties. You are ordered to take your own life. Meng Tian urged him not to comply. This could be a fake. Send a messenger first. Confirm before you do anything. Fu Su didn't listen. He read the letter. He believed it. And he died. Why? Because Fu Su had spent years arguing against his father's harsher policies. He knew his father disapproved of him. When the letter arrived ordering his death, it didn't feel impossible. It felt like the ending he had always feared. The forgery worked not because it was perfect. It worked because it exploited the one person who was already prepared to believe it. If you were Fu Su, Would you have verified that letter? Drop your answer in the comments. Before the empire collapses, we need to talk about Lisa, because his story is the one that stays with you. He grew up poor. As a young man working in a granary, he noticed two groups of rats. The ones in the outhouse, scrawny, terrified, always chased away. The ones in the grain store, fat, comfortable, untouchable. He thought, the difference isn't intelligence. It's not effort. It's which system you're inside. He left that day. He studied under China's greatest philosopher. He came to Qin. He spent 30 years helping build the most ambitious state in Chinese history. Standardized writing, centralized law, the doctrine that the emperor stands above all gods. And then, standing over the emperor's dead body at Sand Mound, he made the worst decision of his life. He agreed to the forgery, because he was afraid. After 3 decades, building an empire on the principle that loyalty to the ruler is absolute, he broke that principle the moment it became inconvenient. The system he built ate him alive. Zhao Gao had him arrested on fabricated charges. He was convicted under the very laws Lisa himself had written, executed, along with his entire family, by punishments he had helped design. His last words were spoken to his son, both of them being led to their deaths. He said, "I just want to take you and our old yellow dog back to home, and go hunting in the fields like we used to. But we can't do that anymore." From the rats in the granary, to the yellow dog in home, that is the complete arc of Lisa's life. So how do we know any of this? Hu Hai killed Lisa. He killed everyone who helped forge the documents. He killed virtually everyone who might have known. And yet, decades later, Sima Qian wrote it all down, in extraordinary, almost cinematic detail. The most credible explanation. When the civil war ended, and the Qian dynasty fell, the incoming general immediately seized the imperial archives. Everything. Tax records, military dispatches, and apparently, something detailed enough to reconstruct the conversations at Sand Mound. Maybe confessions. Maybe testimony from minor officials who survived. Maybe someone, in the chaos of the dynasty's final days, just wrote it down. We don't know. What we know is that the story survived, and that Sima Qian found a way to preserve it, hidden across 2 separate chapters, where a casual reader might miss the connection. Historians have always found ways to keep the truth alive, even when the truth was dangerous. Next episode, the man who replaced Li Se and the moment he pointed at a deer and called it a horse in front of the entire court.